hypothetically, if this knife were to slip, it would hurt a lot. But would the pain I would feel be the same pain you would feel? If we both stubbed our toe right now, we would both be in pain. But what's to say that your pain, doing the exact same thing, would be the same as my pain? Because the body doesn't produce pain, it's the brain that does it, in order to stop you from wanting to damage yourself in the future. So how do we know that it's the same? People think that we experience the same pain because different pains feel different, right? Doctors use the McGill Pain Questionnaire to try and find out what type of pain you're feeling. They use words like sharp, dull, stabbing, throbbing, burning, all to try and figure out what's actually wrong with you. Because different types of pain are related to different types of injuries. For instance, people who have had appendicitis first describe an aching pain that then becomes a burning and stabbing pain. I would know. People who have had heart attacks describe a squeezing and then constricting pain. Again, I would know. Stubbing your toe is sharp and then aching. Being burned is hot and then it's tender. So surely, if all of these injuries can be described the same way, with the same types of pain, then it must all be felt the same way, right? Well, no. If I asked you to describe an aching pain to me, what would you actually say? Well, you'd probably just say it feels like an ache. You know what an ache feels like, don't you? It's an ache, like a stomach ache. The truth is, there is no way to describe what an aching pain feels like specifically for you, because it's created in your head. Yes, we can say that when you experience an aching pain, certain neurons fire off that is similar in everyone else. But how do we know that your aching pain doesn't feel like my burning pain? Or that your stabbing pain feels like my aching pain? We genuinely don't have a way to know for sure. So this whole time we could have been feeling completely different things, but because we know and describe that thing as a burning or an aching or a stabbing pain, we just presume everyone else feels the same. But pain isn't just caused by knives and guns and other physical things. There's a type of pain that can be inflicted without ever laying a hand on someone else, and that's emotional pain. How does that work? If you've ever been in the unfortunate position of losing a loved one or experiencing heartbreak or grief, you'll be very familiar with the pain of despair. It's the feeling of a deep, sinking, endless pit in your stomach, an ache in your chest pulling you forward. It's almost like you're sinking deeper and deeper into yourself. That is a physical pain. But like we've already said, the brain makes pain in order to get us from doing things that are dangerous. And while there isn't anything dangerous about losing a loved one or experiencing heartbreak or grief, so why does the brain create pain from emotions? Well, the short answer is there is danger. Or at least there was. Back in the caveman days, being alone or really away from your tribe at any given time meant certain death. So if anything was to happen to one of our tribe mates or one of our members of family or a potential mate, then there'd be less hunters to gather food. And in turn, there would then be obviously less food. And with less food comes starvation and, you guessed it, death. So as we evolved as a species, the brain saw this correlation between people and surviving. And so naturally it said, well, these people are important and we should lose as little of them as possible. And what's the best way to get your body to stop certain things from happening? Well, it's to introduce a deterrence. It's to make you feel pain. Some people, however, seem to be very good at resisting pain, whether that be emotionally or physically inflicted. They seem to have higher pain tolerances. But what does that actually mean? And is it real in the first place? And if so, how does it work? A pain tolerance is how much pain you can endure before it becomes overwhelming, to the point where you can't stand it anymore. And yes, it is very real. But the thing is, different people have different pain tolerances, and it comes down to 3 factors. The first is biological factors, and this is something that you genuinely cannot control. It's to do with your nerve endings, which are the things in your skin that sense the world around you. It controls how sensitive they are, and it also controls how strong the signals that come from these nerve endings are perceived by the brain. And it also controls how much of the body's natural painkiller, or endorphins, your body releases. So yes, you can be built different to everybody else, but that isn't the main factor that controls pain. This is out of your control, but there is a way to train your brain in order to take more pain. Psychological factors. Your attention, your mindset, and your emotions all change how intense pain feels for you. This is why athletes or soldiers, or oddly enough, people who meditate often can push through pain, because they've trained their brain to not interpret or at times block the signals coming into the brain. If you've ever heard of Wim Hofmann or the ice guy, you'll know that that guy can sit in freezing water for like a ridiculous amount of time. And that's not because he can take biologically more pain than anyone else, it's because he's trained himself to sit in that pain and work his way through it, to push through it, to ignore the signs of pain, or in a way, to ignore fear. But the final factor is the one that's the most interesting to me, and that is context. In certain situations, like emergencies, for example, some people can ignore injuries completely until much later on. It's like how a mother can lift a car off of her kids when in any normal situation she wouldn't be able to lift even 1/10 of that weight because it's too painful. Famously, Eddie Hall, a British strongman champion, once tapped into this mindset, to this context. He placed himself in that situation mentally, and he managed to lift 1/2 ton off of the floor. At the time, he was bleeding through his nose, his eyes, and his brain. He went temporarily blind, and for about 4 weeks afterwards, he couldn't remember his wife or kid's name. But he managed to push through it, and in doing so, he managed to achieve one of the greatest physical feats that mankind has ever seen. Now, I'm not recommending that you go and do anything that extreme, but if you teach yourself to go through pain more often and build up a higher tolerance, life seems to get a lot easier. In the long run, that is. If this interested you, you should watch this video I made on why punching in your dream feels so slow, almost like you're moving through sludge. Also, my newsletter is linked down below through my website. Thank you very much, and goodbye, I guess.